For centuries, healing practices across different cultures have offered approaches to well-being that continue to resonate even today. As modern medicine evolves, there is growing interest in understanding how these time-tested systems can complement contemporary care and contribute to more holistic health outcomes. Our next session, Ayurveda, Traditional Chinese Medicine and Indigenous Healing Practices. What can science learn? We'll take a closer look at how these traditions are being studied, validated, and thoughtfully integrated into today's clinical landscape. Joining us for this discussion are Kingsley Ugochi, clinical pharmacist at Aya Healthcare, Dr. Ann Deatley, CEO and founder of Optimal Health and Wellness Center, LLC, doing business as eQuantum Breakthroughs, Jim Onick, president and CEO of Epoch Lasers, Amanda Baker, LMT, PMP, so many more letters, CTCP, and co-owner of Body Effects Wellness. I'm totally honoring you. There's a lot of letters. Dr. Julie Tran Olive, founder of Silicon Valley Natural Health, Michelle Rourke, CEO and founder of Faya Lab, and Dr. Ravi R. Iver, founder and chairman of Active Power Group of companies and the Ayer Clinic, bringing diverse perspectives to this fascinating conversation. Please join me in welcoming all of our phenomenal panelists to the stage. Let's give them a warm round of applause. I have a mic here. I'm going to pass the mic. We also have the podium available as well.
You got the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Julie Tran-Olive, founder and CEO of Silicon Valley Natural Health. I'm a naturopathic doctor and licensed acupuncturist, so of course I have to be on this panel, right? This is up my alley. So when we look at functional medicine, TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine, and Ayurveda, it seems like they're separate systems, but they are actually similar. They just speak a different language. The framework is the same, it's just the language is different. The biggest overlap I see is systems thinking. Every system, right? Chinese medicine looks at it by organ systems and by the meridians and the channels. Functional medicine looks at it from the gut, brain, endocrine axis of they're all interconnected, talking to each other. Ayurveda looks at it from the balance of the doshas, kapha, vata, pitta. Right? Another big overlap is root cause, finding the root cause, right? Functional medicine looks at, is it an environmental trigger? Is it the gut biome? Is it inflammation? TCM looks at pattern differentiation, tongue and pulse. Ayurveda looks at, is there imbalance in the doshas? Is the digestion or the ani impaired? Other overlaps also include, sorry. We also are going to include, so basically for the root cause, sorry, it's why is that happening, right? Just not symptom suppression. So that's why we look at the environmental triggers, we look at pattern differentiation, and so we're all looking at the same thing, just in a different language, in a different framework for that. The other thing is the herbal formulas are synergistic, right? It's not just one single herb. It's not one isolated ingredient. It is everything working synergistically together. There are certain Chinese medicinal formulas that we say are too cloying, too sticky, so there are herbs in there to actually help it move a little bit better, right? When we look at Ayurveda, they do the same thing. If your constitution, let's say you're too warming, right, then the prescription would be to cool the system down. Functional medicine looks at that too. Where is the imbalance and where are we going to do all of that rebalancing of that? Where it diverges, right, from modern scientific research and things like that, is that modern medicine doesn't have an explanation of qi or the prana, right, in Ayurveda. There is no way we can anatomically measure that. We can't explain it yet, right? There are emerging fields such as bioelectrical signaling, fascia network and things, but our current modern scientific method does not have a way to measure that anatomically, and we don't have a complex system of that yet. The other divergence is when I talk about herbal formulas, and we look at pharmacology, modern pharmacology looks at isolated active ingredients, right? Statins, they lower cholesterol. It's an active ingredient. It's an HDM co-reductase inhibitor. But Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, it's a whole herbal formula with many herbs in there to rebalance the system. So, in my opinion, the big takeaway is that modern medicine there's the other part. The other condition is that in our research, it is very hard to research things when a person can go, two people can walk into a clinic, have the same Western diagnosis, but come out with a different treatment plan because you're using TCM or you're using Ayurveda. So when you do research, it's very hard when the treatment plan is different from person to person. Modern research likes to isolate one variable at a time. It doesn't consider when a treatment plan is changing, there's very hard to do clinical studies because how are you going to define the parameters for that when it's personalized medicine, right? So the takeaway is that all three systems are complementary, and the way we're going to help integrate that into modern science is that functional medicine is kind of that bridge that is the translator between the two, right? Between the traditional healing systems and current modern medicine. That's my takeaway.
Thank you. I'm the late entry here. I'm Dr. Ravi Iyer. Been a physician for 42 years, and I lead three companies, one of which is a global synergy between Eastern and Western medicine. My training is in Western medicine and molecular biology and biochemistry, and I combined that. It's very interesting what you just said about Eastern medicine, which is highly personalized, highly individualized, versus Western, which is highly formulated, highly regulated. The two systems are not contradictory, but they behave according to different rules and for different purposes. Western medicine fundamentally is oriented towards standardization and monetization of the business of healing. You cannot monetize a natural product, you cannot patent it. As a result, Western medicine tends to go for isolating single agent compounds that you can then look at using that in some way that produces a benefit and in some way that allows the companies and agencies that create that to reap a profit out of it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with profit, but you've got to just understand that that's the rules. Eastern medicine, by contrast, whether it's Ayurveda or Chinese or any other indigenous form of medicine, works on whole system approach where multiple complex compounds are used in a synergistic sense to produce an effect which is beneficial. The problem is not that one is superior or inferior. The problem is how do you integrate the two in a way that allows you to produce an impact and yet retain control over your product to some extent so that you do not have people who piggyback on your hard work and take over the market. And at the same time, you want to not necessarily be so reductionist that all you're doing is having a single molecule and then trying to go down the Western route. And what we in our company, Actopower, what we did was we used Eastern herbal medicine or Eastern marine biologicals and combined it with Western rigorous testing to create proprietary compounds that are proprietary in the sense of how we blend the various compounds together, but they are still within the same holistic system. And I think that in future is going to be the direction of healthcare, because healthcare is moving towards higher personalization. The entire field of regenerative and longevity medicine is going further and further into higher complex groups of treatments that allow people to actually reactivate natural processes in their body. And the only way you can do that is to go through to the indigenous systems.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kingsley Ugoji. I'm a clinical pharmacist by trade, so I legally sell drugs to everyone, and our providers prescribe them. We kind of get the demon card out here in the streets of, big pharma, big pharma. I definitely do agree with that. I'm just here to kind of add my 2 cents, since I'm deep in that realm, and seeing how much money they're making, but then also how they are perhaps maybe dropping the ball as far as meeting the needs of society and actually promoting health, which I think each and every one of us, for ourselves and for our family, that's what we want, just for a tighter knit community. One thing I just want to bring attention to is I think in our normal drug development model, that may be flawed, because money is at the forefront of everything. So if we can come with that blockbuster drug, fund it, get enough information and research behind it, we can push it, get it passed, and then we'll be making money as it's patented. I think where there's space that we could maybe push the needle is having more information or more research on these traditional indigenous modalities. Unfortunately, even how I was trained, and this kind of goes into maybe how doctors, nurses, pharmacists, how we're trained in school. We definitely highlight data. I won't tell a lie. Data is important. Obviously, scientific research, having things to back up what you're saying. However, if maybe there's an area or field that is not receiving attention, or maybe sometimes purposely not receiving that attention because we'd rather put money in here to prove that our drug or medication can work, so it can approve, versus, oh, have you looked at other options that maybe civilizations in the past kind of have used? And so I feel like we're in this middle ground, because obviously we are in the West, so Western medicine is very prevalent. But we cannot forget the societies and civilizations that have lived far, far beyond their years and have got us kind of here. So I'm just here to add that perspective, a little anecdotal, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I know we're interested in measuring things and gathering data and doing research, but I was working in drug trials and vaccine trials, actually, and they want to find out in the majority of the people whether that drug is going to work or not. But who wants to be normal or in the average, right? We want to be ahead of the curve, right? And so there are a lot of people that are on the edges of those bell-shaped curves that these drugs are not going to work for. But the research is not on them. And they represent you and me. And so what I'm doing now is I test an individual person. So there's the subtle energies. I study 9 different systems. I talked about it earlier, but so it's this subtle energy that you can tap into an individual, and the body will say, I like this and I don't like that. And so you can test supplements. I don't really test medications, but supplements or herbals or whatever. So you can get a direct reading from that person. So I think that is more personalized, more customized to assess what somebody needs and what somebody doesn't need to help with whatever their systems are. So I talked earlier about this, but I think I'm going to bring it up again because I don't think there might be new people here. But I have been investigating about these chronic diseases that people come in, like constipation, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and things like this that there really isn't herbals or, or even traditional Chinese medicine for. But what I have found is that there's an emotional issue that causes an electrical short circuiting, just like a fuse gets blown in the system, and then it causes all this disconnection of different energy systems in the body. So I have to reconnect the energies, and we do this with an energy called radiant circuits. So they're joy generators, but they're also circuit builders, and they connect different energies within systems and between systems. So I reconnect everything, and then I go and ask the body, was there electrical short circuiting? And the body always says yes. So I have to hold these electric points. We have main electric points on our bodies. And then once that fuse has been replaced, then I'm able to find out, well, what caused all of this? And it's either something in the chakra system or something in the 5 rhythms or the 5 element system. So then I can correct that or do the treatment on that. And then we have disrupted the pattern associated with that chronic condition. So that's like the deepest level, is answering or getting to the root cause of things that we don't understand scientifically. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Going into that, yes, understanding energy systems, there are quite a few with the body. As a medical massage therapist, reflexology practitioner, I have, the experience of, and the school that I attended, they literally put the scientific medical validity behind every, approach, every modality that we had learned. So the gaps, between traditional medicine or care techniques are now gradually starting to be proven by science. And that is literally where we're going to excel. And really, modern medicine shouldn't be concerned that we're going to take over things. If anything, modern medicine should be there to help, provide that proof, that scientific study. And a good example of that, something very common for babies born before 37 weeks. Their livers are underdeveloped and, they stand high chance of jaundice. My daughter was born 5 weeks early, and on her 3rd day after her birth, she had to spend a little time in the NICU. She was under lights for jaundice, and understanding reflexology, understanding what's going on with her body physiologically. While she was in the incubator, I literally was just pressing on her liver and her kidney points, and the next day she was off the lights, where usually in a lot of instances it takes about a week or so, on most cases. So finding that connection, even if you were to take a diagram of the energy meridians, the chakras, and even reflexology points, those chakras, those are like transformers. The energy meridians are like the cables, the freeways that delivers all of that energy to where it needs to go. And reflexology points are mapped out spaces or places to stimulate, trigger, responses. When you complement with a good diet, exercise, herbs, minerals, providing your body what it needs to. It was designed by God, a divine, just beings to heal themselves. If we provide our bodies what they need and give it the chance to rest, because what's that old saying? When does the body heal best? When it's at rest. So allowing, the proper process, the system, which isn't observed by modern medicine, I'm really glad to see we're all up here in agreement and really striving for these changes. So, with what we do at Body Effects Wellness, we definitely try to, implement all aspects of healing. We take the body, the mind, the energy, everything. I personally ask my patients what they're going through. If they had an accident when they're a child, a majority of the time people are like, oh, that happened so long ago, it doesn't make a difference. I'm like, Are you joking? Did you break down the scar tissue? If you had surgery, all sorts of other elements. I mean, I had one patient that had this extremely chronic knot in his shoulder, and I gradually worked up to the point where we did the deepest amount of pressure on him and was able to release that, and he broke out in tears, and he had told me it was a place he had stored trauma when he was a child because his grandpa had beat him there. And so it's amazing that even understanding aspects of the body. I mean, water holds information. Our bodies are made with carbon, stores information. And another thing that's not even observed or looked at when it comes to chronic pain is a pain map based on your emotions, your trauma, and everything you've gone through in your life. So there's so many aspects to look at, and yes, getting to that point of customizing medicine and making it just that much more available to people. We're all going to be living happier, healthier, longer lives. So I'm very glad to be a part of this panel and this group of people here today. Keep doing what you're doing. It'll make the difference.
Well said.
I couldn't have asked for a better handoff with your mention about chronic pain. So I'm Jim Onick. I'm the president and CEO of Epic Lasers. And many years ago, I developed a laser that's used to treat acute and chronic pain. The basic science behind that laser is simply it stimulates the mitochondria to produce ATP, helps improve blood flow in the area, and there's a very good biological, well-proven underpinning for the laser. But over the past few years, I was really starting to study neuropathic pain. How do you treat pain where you really don't have a diagnosis? You can go in and get an X-ray, a CT scan, an MRI, and it shows nothing but the person's in pain. And how do you treat that? And so having the opportunity to travel around the world the past few years and study in Japan and Thailand and in China, I started to look at ways to use the laser this is going to, in conjunction with meditation, okay, which can be very, very helpful with certain kinds of meditation. I also looked at it as how you can use the laser to activate meridians. So kind of a foreign concept here in traditional medicine. But then one step further, I looked at how you can use the laser to activate the chakras, which when I tell that to most traditional medicine people, they just roll their eyes and walk away and think I'm a disturbed individual. My background is biomedical engineering, so I had a high bar to try to convince of these things. So frequency, yes. And so, we have two clinics, one down in Puerto Rico and one in Ecuador, who both have put into practice using the laser with these techniques to treat indigenous people, to treat people that have intractable pain, even treat people that have some emotional or other health issues, where the laser helps them physically feel better at a point, but the counseling, the meditation, and the chakra activation actually helps them spiritually as well. And these things tied together make a very powerful healing tool. And so as I'm not a doctor, but I have been a laser therapist and a biomedical engineer for almost 40 years. Combining these concepts has been a very fascinating and learning journey for me, and I see a real power in it.
So exciting.
I'm Michelle Rourke, and I come from the hard science, and it's been a bit of a life mission to prove from a scientific perspective and data how important things like aromatherapy are in ancient wisdom. I have a lab called PhiLab where we've been researching the energy and biological essences for nearly 2 decades. I come from the hard science, like I said, chemical engineering, quantum physicist, and physical chemistry would tell you that the major chemical constituents are very similar, and therefore you're not going to see a difference from, say, essential oil to essential oil. But not only did we prove that there was a difference, we proved that it was visible, viable, and quantifiable, which was cool, and we thought we were along the lines of proving how and why this can all be so effective and bring it to mainstream medicine, particularly in the U.S. But ultimately, what we found was it missed the mark a little bit. So we dove a little deeper and we thought about that equation Einstein gave us almost 120 years ago, E equals mc squared. These essences that we were researching vibrate at a very, very high frequency. And when you're looking at things that are that high frequency, you have to look at constructive and destructive interference patterns. When Einstein gave us that equation, if you think about what it really means, everything is energy, obviously. Energy is matter, matter is energy, you know? So looking at it from that perspective, you look at destructive and constructive interference patterns. And when you do that, it can kind of throw everything upside down on its head, but it can make it way more powerful. And what we found through our research is if we combine essences from the botanical world according to their energy footprint, it would interact in a constructive interference pattern, making very, very powerful energy medicine. And you know, from today in the United States, you're not allowed to use that word medicine. At Via Lab, we call it quantum nutrition. It's like a multivitamin for a much larger energy body. What's so cool about science today and over the last 2 decades or maybe even longer is we can now write the science, the mathematics behind what mystics and yogis and intuitives have always known. 1, we have a huge energy body, and 2, diseases manifest there first before they take form in the physical body. So if you think about what health and wellness is, it's taking care of that energy body. Well, what is that energy body? That can be proven in science as well. It's Maxwell's equations, right? So we're highly electrical beings, and around every electrical current that is moving is an electromagnetic field. That's what we call it in science. In the metaphysical world, you call it your aura, but you lose your funding the second you say that. So we like to keep it scientific. It's the electromagnetic energy that vibrates around us, electric beings, but it's literally our energy in motion. It is our emotions. And when we don't deal with things and this energy body is constantly being bombarded by overstimulation in today's world, digital technology, you name it, it also has chronic uneasiness from all the world events and crazy things that are going on, as well as unprocessed grief and guilt. It sort of tangles that energy body, and it gets cluttered and mucked up. And if we don't deal with those tangles, it'll manifest into something physical. So it's important to do wellness practices like everybody's talking about up here, Ayurvedic, aromatherapy, you know, kinesiology, acupuncture, Reiki, you name it. And it's also useful to take something that can help with that, like a multivitamin for your much larger energy body. We call it quantum nutrition. Thanks.
I'll also add in a little bit more. Another factor that comes into it, you know, in some cases, I always find myself, okay, what's affecting your body first? Is it the emotions, or is it the repetitive job that you have that's creating the strain and pain? And sometimes, you know, it's a combination of both. Usually, a lot of what we have going in our bodies, it's life. Okay, it's never just one thing. It's life. Being more sedentary, one of the biggest things that we have going on with us, we're not moving around. We're not getting our lymphatic system, which helps get everything else going, you know, moving around. We are literally stewing in our own metabolic waste. If we're not giving our bodies the right system, you know, functioning support, fuel, and we're also not taking care of our bodies, you know, breaking down is not a matter of, you know, if, it's a matter of when. And a lot of people, you know, they don't take that time to slow down and, you know, get back to the basics. And that's something else that I'm expanding in with my company is also retreats. After a lot of massages, I have so many patients asking, hey, can I just take a nap right now? They're just ready to check out. And I'm like, okay, I have to, you know, create these retreat locations, give people a chance to relax, set up an organic food forest, a place to, you know, submerge in just whole experience between music, vibration, just being amongst nature. I mean, there's scientific studies showing that sitting in nature, hugging a tree, it lowers your cortisol. I mean, NASA studies is starting back as far as like 1970s. Some of what they have done with astronauts going up in space, some of their data that they've measured with their nervous systems, it's comparable to, people that are experienced meditators. So there are studies out there that, have already given those subtle bridges between the different philosophies of, how to treat patients. And again, this is what we're all here for, and we all are waking up. We all feel this pull and vibe, and we're all just making it happen in our own ways. And I feel that, yes, being able to have this opportunity to come together, get to network, interact with other minds, I feel that this is just going to grow bigger, like monumentally, and just kind of be this amazing rapid domino fall of, progression that personally, I'm not the biggest fan of pharma. There's a time and place for everything. But, a lot of people don't put that time and place in their bodies and just what they need first.
Yeah, I agree. We really have to use both and. So it's not, so I think of what I do as complementary and but very valuable. So I wanted to bring up also about you really are a magnificent being. So you were talking about your energy field is really big. It is really big. It's bigger than the earth. Your body, your physical, your energetic body is bigger than the earth. So you can kind of understand oneness in that respect because we're just all blended together at that point, right? And all of this energy, and all of you can't fit in this physical body. Yeah, so, but we want to bring as much as we can because we want it infused into every cell. And we can do that just by breathing, just by deeply breathing. But we all have been so stressed out that we just shallow breathe. Well, that's not doing anything. That's helping to keep us disconnected. So I talked a lot this morning about being connected. That's our problem. That is our real problem in the world, is that we're disconnected, not just from ourselves and who we really are, but we're disconnected from each other, and we're disconnected from this immaculate mind or this consciousness or this unified field that we really are. And so we think we have the responsibility to live our lives and, do our work and bring in money and pay the bills and all that stuff. But there's a way more reason, much higher reason that you're here for. And so you need to connect to that. You need to be aligned and coherent with that and come from that. That is what your soul wants, or your true self really wants. But if we need to connect to that, we need to intentionally and consciously connect to that aspect of ours. And I do want to tell one story, since you told the story. There was a woman who was in my networking group, and she had been a personal trainer, but she had had a car accident with a truck. So a truck hit her car from behind, and she had so much back pain, she had to change to become a health coach because she couldn't stand long enough to help her personal training clients. So she had to change jobs, and she comes to me 8 years later, and in one session, this doesn't normally happen, but in one session, I figured out that she had fear stuck in her kidney organs. Like when you're really aligned, you get information, you have this knowing of what's really going on. And so I worked with removing that fear from her kidney organs. And she walked out of my practice fully healed after 8 years of being in severe back pain. So this really works. And we have to give it a try. We have to vocalize it, because there's more than one way to heal. And sometimes we have to get to the root cause. We have to find the root cause. And sometimes it's fear stuck in an organ. And sometimes, so it's like a different way to see the world. It's a different way to think through problems and a different way to kind of connect to what's really happening.
Can I add in?
Yeah.
But then also with that, you have to take like a biochemical lens to it. Because again, with fear, what's going on? What's being released? Cortisol, other stress hormones. And then how does that, play a domino effect and have, a long-term possibility with, the rest of your body? I think there's a question. Absolutely. But yes, continuing on with that. So again, that domino effect of what can happen with your body with like just fear alone. I mean, when you look at the rest of, going down into your GI tract, when you're super stressed, fear-based, your digestive system isn't working. You're not going to be absorbing food the same way. So if your body's not getting the nutrients it needs, how is it supposed to function?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. I can answer that.
What was the question? Geo something?
Yeah, repeat that question, please. GLP-1 is a peptide.
Oh.
It's actually part of your body. It's the peptide that we know as Ozempic, which is the brand name. Semaglutide is the active ingredient. Even though it was extracted originally from a Gila monster, it's actually present in every person's body. GLP-1 is glucagon-like peptide, and it's secreted by a few cells in the duodenum. It's part of your signaling pathway, and it's part of the pathway that actually tells the body when and how much insulin needs to be secreted. It is also a part of the system that tells the brain that to not eat anything more. It's enough to, whatever you've eaten, you have met your nutritional needs, you can stop eating now. So these two aspects of GLP-1, it operates through one by telling the satiation center in the brain that you're full, stop eating. The other is it slows the gut down and makes the stomach feel full. So there is a physical sensation of fullness in the stomach, which you can have by a full meal, or with adequate GLP-1, you will get the same sensation. Both sensations, regardless of which way you create that sensation, the end result is you'll stop eating. Now, these mechanisms are nature's mechanisms to regulate the ingestion of food and the supply of food in a rate at which your digestive system can handle it. Now, in my clinic, we have a program called Body for Life, where we integrate peptide chemistry along with a whole bunch of other nutritional strategies to boost mitochondrial function, to boost what I call a triadic system of reduction of inflammatory mediators, increase in gut health, and a boost in neurocognitive function. And the reason for that is, if you take functional life, and on the y-axis you have functionality, 0 to 100%. On the x-axis you have age, 0 to 100. Using the biblical measure of a lifespan actually the Bible says up to 125, but I think that's stretching it a little bit. So 0 to 100. Now the beginning, the end, the start of life, the birth and the death are fixed. You can't modify those two. But you can pretty much modify everything in between. Now, if you don't do anything, what we are all accustomed to is a life that goes to maximum functionality until age of 40. And from 40, you have a decline. So if you have a 100-year lifespan, you have 60 years of decline. right? Now, the holy grail of healthcare, whether it's Eastern or Western, is to live a long life that is characterized both in length and functionality, and have what I call a cliff drop off, that you go to bed and then don't wake up. You don't have any decline. Now, in the past, that promise was not guaranteed for most people. It was a rarity, it was more hit and miss. Now, technology, medicine, both Western and Eastern, have accumulated sufficient understanding to push the decline part of the curve up. And what we now can realistically assure people that we can bring it up such that after the age of 40, you can go on till 85, 90 without dropping below the 75% functionality mark. You really can do it. And then you can have that cliff drop off, which everyone wants. I've been a physician for 42 years. I've never seen a person ever telling me that I want to lie in my poo and pee for the last 20 years of my life. Nobody has ever come to me and said, Doc, let me live long in a diaper. No one has ever said that. But yet, that is the life that we expect, right? After 75. Now, everyone talks about health. Everyone talks about regeneration. And we talk about different modalities. We talk about Eastern modalities of energy and mind body and quantum, and Western modalities of peptides and various biochemicals. But the truth is, the body only knows molecules. The body doesn't know Eastern or Western. The body only knows chemistry, which is molecules entering your body and interacting with the molecules of your body. And in that interaction, something happens, for good or for ill. Everyone thinks that Western medicine. I've had patients coming and telling me, I don't want to take a pill. And I tell them, you are already taking a medicine from birth. It's called food. You take it 3 times a day to prevent the disease called malnutrition. So you're born with a disease, malnutrition, which you prevent by constantly feeding yourself 3 times a day. So why do you insist on saying that this particular medicine that I'm giving you is somehow worse than food? So this is a mindset that you want. So look at benefit, look at value, and make sure that the benefit is balanced. So the problem here is not that Western medicine is bad or Eastern medicine is good or vice versa. The problem is the loss of balance.
Yeah, I agree.
And because each camp wants adherence to them, right? It's just like you have different people saying, hey, come to my church, don't go to their church. It's the same story. Everyone wants my group to grow, my ideology to grow. But shift away from the ideology and ask whether you're really producing an impact. Are you able to create a situation where somebody lives 90 years and is functional to the last breath? My father is going to be 98 this year.
Wow.
My mother is 94. My mother still reads the newspaper. She forgets it, but she still reads it. She talks to me about it. My dad was walking 3 to 5 miles a day until 6 months ago. And the last 6 months, he has not been able to walk, and he's declining fast, and I expect that this year will probably end up being his last year of life. But that is a full life.
Yeah.
Yes, he wears a diaper now, but he wasn't wearing a diaper 1.5 years ago. And that was 95. So, functionality is possible. He led a life that the other panelists have been describing. He would get up at 4 in the morning, go to bed by 9 in the evening, and walk 3 to 5 miles every day, all his life. So longevity is not just taking a supplement or taking the right amount of hormone or a GLP-1, as somebody said. It is all of it and yet something beyond it. It is a mindset, but a mindset in a structured way of living that allows that mindset to translate into actual content of life. Everyone talks about only mindset and they forget about the structure. My dad I once asked him, and he said that, you know why it is so hard to be good? It is hard to be good because you have to say no to so many people. You have to say no to somebody who's inviting you to a late night party and be the a-hole who is breaking up the fun. You know, you have to say, no, I'm going to go to bed. It's my bedtime, 9 o'clock. I'm going to go. I'm not going to party till 11 o'clock. And somebody is going to think that you are not a social, socially clued in kind of person. And you got me on my soapbox, but, sorry about that. But
It's okay.
what was your question? So GLP-1, now we are recognizing something that's happening with GLP-1. As people are losing weight, they are actually experiencing nutritional deficiencies out of it. So what the negative side of GLP-1 is beginning to emerge. So while the positive side of GLP-1 is right, that it allows you to regulate your body and shed all the toxins, you can take a good thing too far. In my clinic, when we put people on GLP-1, we also put them on certain key supplements like vitamins of B12, B6, B1, niacin, folate. We make sure that they get magnesium. We make sure that they are balanced out on vitamin D. These are mandatory if you're going to take GLP-1. Because what's going to happen is you're going to stop eating food as much as before. And then you're going to lack in some of these vitamins that you're normally getting through food. So you're going to got to give it in some other way. So so nothing in the world is all good with no downside, ever. Everything has a downside. There is an Indian saying that says that when in excess, the elixir of immortality can be a poison. So it's like I said earlier, it's the balance that is more important than the content. And people really need to pay attention to balance.
Let me piggyback off of that. I guess my version or my thought on GLP-1 as a pharmacist, just a layman's thinking, I tend to shy away from synthetics. So glucagon-like peptide, I believe, like you said, naturally occurring in our body. However, for some reason, if we don't get the synthesized version of it quite right, it doesn't give the same effects as something, say, natural. When I think of the coca leaves, otherwise known as cocaine on the streets. I do that too, but the coca leaves. I think about what were the indigenous peoples of that time chewing the coca leaves. What did they need that extra energy, etc. for? Versus now, you have a synthetic powder. Goes for how much on the market. Another thing, sugar cane versus high fructose corn syrup, which now we know, okay, high fructose corn syrup is bad, synthesizing certain things. So that's me as a pharmacist, but just layman's thinking. When we synthesize certain things to try to give the same effect, sometimes it doesn't quite work in that way, I guess you can say. But given story time, I guess it's my story time.
The molecular structure of GLP-1
Yes.
is identical to the natural GLP-1.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no difference in the molecules. So there, I understand what you're trying to say about synthesis.
Mm-hmm.
There are two kinds of synthesis, and I need to bring this up. So you have a molecular compound. Let's take a GLP-1. Let's say there are 5 amino acids, pentapeptide, linked to each other. Now, if you just were to inject these 5 amino acids, it'll have a half-life. It'll get destroyed by the body in, let's say, 30 minutes. Now, the pharma industry wants to give a shot, not every 30 minutes, they want to give a shot every 6 hours. So they have to modify that molecule in some way that allows for a longer duration and a slower degradation of the molecule. So the molecule has to become more bioavailable. Everyone with me so far? Mm-hmm. That modification is synthetic. Now, unfortunately, in everyday language, we use the word synthetic to imply everything is synthetic. No, it is not. So they now use, this is a pharma medicine, it's synthetic, so it's not the same as natural. That's not always true. GLP-1s, yes. I can answer that, but unless somebody else wants to take over.
I'll say fasting. That's the first thing that popped in my head, kind of like a restart. What's wrong with your computer? Did you restart your computer? I think as for the body, given that, fasting is kind of like a reset, et cetera, resting the digestive system, kind of giving the body time to heal, et cetera. So fasting is what I would say.
The number one most powerful longevity strategy is food restriction, fasting. The number 2 longevity strategy is regularity in sleep. These are the 2 most powerful longevity strategies and the most inexpensive available to human beings. It's universally available with no restriction, no special qualifications, no monetization necessary. Stop reaching for that extra. Get up out of your plate, out of your table, a little hungry. I have something in my strategy where we use called the 3 tablespoon habit. I tell my patients to sit at a dining table 20 to 25 feet removed from the serving table. And when they go to the serving table, they are supposed to take only 3 tablespoons of a food item onto their plate. Only 3. Then come to this dining table, sit down, eat those 3 tablespoons. Then get up, go and take your next 3. Come, sit down, eat this 3. Then get up, go and take the next 3. You know what they do? They get up 2 times, and after that they are full. The 3 tablespoon habit automatically produces food restriction, because by the time you go back and forth, you don't. The reason why people eat their 4th morsel is because they were not attentive to the first 3. They never paid attention to it. You got your phone, you got YouTube playing there, you got Instagram going there, and that's it. People are working and eating. So in the Body for Life program, we have rules there where we change their behavior. We say you can't work and eat. You eat, you're attentive to it. The Japanese have something called a tea ceremony. It's highly intentional.
Yes, and with that, another aspect I had observed is, taking the time to eat slower. With that, there's better mastication of the food, you're stimulating your vagus nerve, and you're also stimulating saliva production, which helps with that breakdown process. So there's a lot of things that come into play. Again, moderation in how much you eat, the excess, that's obviously too much, the type of food you're putting in your system, something alternatively you could do an easier detox. I this last week, aside from doing intermittent fasting, I started doing, I guess, what some people had called the baby food diet. I started creating pureed soups, creating, things that are just purely vegetables, herbs, and providing what my body needs. So when you're able to deliver that, again, just moderation and figure out what you really need. Stick to that.
So going back to the original question about what other healing traditions can do when someone's on a GLP-1 and they're starting to have the negative effects of that. A doctor said nutritional deficiencies can happen. And actually GLP-1s, when you look at the weight loss, we have to make sure that the weight loss is fat loss and not lean muscle loss. Right? Because if you look at the research, it does say that most of the weight loss is lean muscle loss. So anyone putting a patient on GLP-1 needs to prevent that from happening. In ancient traditions, if you look at traditional Chinese medicine, we would work on the digestion. So it would be the spleen and stomach, but also what in naturopathic medicine we call opening up the emunctories and making sure all your detox pathways are available, right? As patients lose weight, they're actually releasing toxins that had been stored away in the fat cells because the body is intelligent enough to know that I don't want this near a vital organ, so it's going to be walled off in the fat. But as you start break open the fat cells because you're losing weight, the toxins are recirculating in the body. So what you have to do is make sure that detox pathways are open. And how do you do that? You got to make sure your patients are properly sweating, right? If it's 100 degrees outside and you're not sweating, there's a problem, right? That you have proper bowel movements. I'm sorry, one bowel movement every few days is not regular bowel movements, okay? There are some of you out there that think that having one bowel movement a day is actually an inconvenience. That's not good if you think that, okay? Right? We also have to make sure your routes of elimination, right? Bowel movements, urination, all of the pathways for detox are happening. So in traditional Chinese medicine, we would be focused on the spleen, stomach, and the large intestine, your digestive pathways. In Ayurveda, it's the same thing. We're focusing on the Anji, right? We're focusing on detoxing the doshas. In Ayurveda, there is panchakarma. It's a whole treatment method where it focuses on detox. Right? Fasting is a great way to reset the body in doing that. And of course, herbal medicine and supplements to combat the nutritional deficiencies that may come from being on a GLP-1.